Hello everyone and welcome. Make a cup of your favorite drink and get comfortable because this is a wonderful time for new stories from Relocate. Send your own stories in the comments below and maybe they'll be in our new video. Subscribe to the channel if you're not subscribed yet. Let's get started. The most memorable fire me I frickin' dare you work moment you've ever had, part 2. I was working as a deckhand for 3 months on a small cruise ship that rhymes with Schmerschmerican Bruise Flines as a way to earn extra money to pay off bills and loans while taking a break from college. Although it's been more than 12 years since then, their working conditions may have changed, but being a deckhand for the company was an incredibly demanding job when I worked there. Working a standard 9-to-5 shift, your job as a deckhand was to take care of minor maintenance issues and other basic maintenance tasks on the ship, like painting, cleaning, and moving furniture. Every deckhand was also expected to put in at least 4 more hours of work during the day, which could involve fire watches or pulling a shift manning the gangplank when the ship was docked and guests were coming and going. The worst part of the job was being a fire watcher because you were left alone in the middle of the night with nothing to do but walk the entire ship, including the engine room, and record in a log every hour that nothing was on fire. The way you worked back then was a rotating schedule. For example, one day you might work from 9 to 5 and then roll into a gangplank, meaning you were done for the night at 9 and could go shore or get some rest. On the other hand, you might work from 9 to 5 the following day, have some free time, and then be woken up at midnight to pull a 4-hour fire watch. This is all part of a typical shift as well. If the boat was in motion or getting ready to dock, all hands would be on deck and you could easily work a 16-hour day, attempt to get an hour or 2 of sleep, and then have to wake up to begin your regular shift. To put it mildly, your sleep schedule becomes disrupted. No matter how the schedule was set up, I believe I calculated that it was physically impossible to get more than 5 to 6 hours of uninterrupted sleep. Since you had to do this 7 days a week for 3 months, there was a ridiculous amount of turnover for people who couldn't handle it. Regardless of where we were docked, I counted about 18 to 20 people who simply packed up and walked off the boat in the middle of the night after my 3 months were up. I was so tired one morning that I didn't think I'd make it to crew breakfast, which was served promptly at 6 in the morning. My body was malfunctioning, and I needed as much extra sleep as possible. I hurried into the kitchen to quickly grab a bowl of cereal after waking up around 7:30. This was a major no-no, as the breakfast rush prevented any crew members from entering except for stewards and kitchen staff. I was approached by the head steward who told me to get out. I clarified that before the shift began, I was simply going to grab a small box of cereal and eat it in my quarters. He attempted to take the box from me and claimed that I was to blame for missing crew breakfast hours, which began at 6 a.m., and that I'd have to wait until lunch. I told him to stop trying to get the cereal, saying, all the deckhands are tired and burned out. I'm not going to ask the chef to prepare me some eggs. I'm going to eat my cereal by myself, so I'm just grabbing it. You have to accept that this is how things will work out. You know the rules, and I'm tired of your attitude, he continues. You'll lose your job when I report this to the captain. Good effing luck with that, buddy. I'm one of the last workers on this ship with any experience. You need me a lot more than I need you, I clearly recall laughing in his face. I went to eat my cereal after that. The captain called me into the bridge later that day to discuss the altercation. Alex called headquarters, and they called me and want me to fire you, is all I remember him saying. I'm sorry, I was hungry and just wanted cereal. You gonna fire me, is what I believe I said. The captain took a deep breath and replied, you got a real effing mouth on you. But you're one of the best workers we have. Now get out and make sure to get breakfast on time from now on. I made it a point to always have the biggest, essiest smile on my face to the supervisor who was trying to fire me after that. Felt so good. A few years ago, I was in charge of an IT call center for an ISP that outsources your jobs. I was wave 0 and one of the few people still alive. A lot of my team was on wave 85 or something. We had a lot of staff turnover. Most people quit after 8 months. Since I was 21 years old and single, the job was easy and only a 10-minute bike ride from home. Plus, the perks weren't too bad. People on my team got the I won't show up to work because you cut my hours again bug. 3 teams were enough for the campaign, so it was pretty scary when one went missing. I'm called to my boss's office on the third day of their strike. Both he and his boss are very angry. They blame me because I didn't get my team motivated enough to finish the work. I asked them to explain how it was my fault that I went out of my way to make a work decision sound better to the team. I was told to talk to my team or look for a new job. When I laughed, I stood up and told them I was looking forward to getting my severance pay with my next paycheck. As I walked out of the building and to the bike rack, my ex-boss asked me to think again and then to at least try to put myself in their shoes. As I unchained my bike, he told me to go F myself. After 2 days, HR calls and wants to set up a meeting. I thought it would be to sign my resignation and get my severance pay. It turned out that they wanted me back and were sorry for how rude they were. I took a chance and told them I could get 15 to 20% more anywhere else, so they'd have to give me a reason to come back if they wanted me to. I got a raise, which was the first one since I started working there, and I didn't even have to make their bad management decisions look good to anyone. After 8 to 10 months, the client pulled the campaign and we're all fired. There's no good reason to be fired here. If you're fired for something like poor performance, disobeying orders, theft, or not showing up for work, you at least get 3 months' pay plus bonuses. You can sue the company or ask for more and try to work something out with them. I asked for 4 months, but they said no. I went to court for 8 and got 6. What unpleasant situations have you dealt with in your HOA or with S neighbors? Part 2. One of my mother-in-law's houses is located on a lake that's accessible to other homes in the neighborhood. She placed a bird bath in her backyard, which seems to have attracted an excessive number of birds. As a result, she received a letter informing her that she was not permitted to have pets and that she was required to remove the bird bath, or else she'd be fined $75 per day. As a result of her stupidity, she never removed the bird bath or paid the fine, and when the amount reached $2,000, they restricted her access to the lake by stating that she was not permitted to leave the boat deck. Every house had one. After that, as the amount of the fine continued to mount, they restricted her ability to park off the street. At that time, her bird bath vanished without a trace one night, prompting her to install security cameras outside. However, the authorities informed her that she was required to remove the cameras because they displayed common areas, which is a violation of the law. The majority of the photographs were taken of her backyard, but the front camera captured her driveway and a small portion of the main road. The back camera captured a portion of the boat dock and a fraction of the lake, but the majority of the photographs were of her yards. The Homeowners Association is so crazy that no one else is even interested in purchasing her house, which she has been trying to sell for years in order to get out of it. Because of the length of time she's lived there, her HOA dues are significantly lower than those of other residents. This leads us to believe that they're simply trying to get rid of her. In the late 1980s, she made the purchase of her home. Everyone in the effing community has a fence around their property. Fences in every direction. We move into the house. In the rules, it is stated that in order for fences to be approved, you're required to submit plans. It's in my submission. It's stated that fences are not permitted. When I asked, since when? Take a look at your rules, they instructed, in response to my statement that it says right here, fence plans must be submitted and approved before they can be built. They respond by saying, yeah, and we no longer make approvals for fence plans. The story has to come to an end. I say no to the fence. I was forced to find a new home for my puppies with my parents. Due to the fact that this is a manufactured home community, the answer is no, and there's anything I can do to prevent them from saying no. Living in a manufactured or mobile home community is something I will never do. The dictatorship is characterized by the fact that it takes advantage of those who are in the most precarious economic positions. In the event that they decide to alter the rules or the lot rent at any time, there is literally no recourse available. They threaten to evict us at the drop of a hat and harass us about the most insignificant things. For example, my child left his bike on the lawn for 2 hours, and they harass us about that. Remember that I'm the owner of the actual house. Moving a building is therefore required for eviction, because if I didn't, I would be calmer than you could possibly imagine. Oh, and they had to tow the work truck that belonged to my husband out of our driveway once because one of the tires had managed to get 1 inch over the driveway and onto the grass. In order to make money, they have a contract with a towing company that literally roams around the neighborhood looking for opportunities like that opportunity. We were given a fine for a circle of dead grass that was 1 foot in diameter and that we were unable to bring back no matter what we did. This occurred in the midst of a drought. When summer arrives, there will be yet another conflict. We recently purchased a new home in Austin that is experiencing rapid growth. A tree was planted in the backyard by the builders, and it'll be supported by stabilizers until it's eventually able to stand on its own. At every point in time, it was essentially lifeless, given that we walked the house to the present moment. Over the course of the past year or so, it's remained there due to the policy of the HOA, the fact that I've been busy with life, and a little bit of laziness. A few months ago, we were hit by some strong winds, which ultimately resulted in the tree being ripped up from the ground. I then called a company to come and get it. A representative of the HOA discovers the information and stops the truck and personnel that are picking up the tree, claiming that I did not follow the procedure. For whatever reason, I inquire about the process, and she responds by saying, "Read the manual." It is FML. That's one paragraph on a page that I have chosen at random. It's necessary for me to collect the signatures and contact information of all the neighbors in the immediate vicinity, compose a letter of justification, and construct something resembling a plan for what the future holds for this small piece of land. It's completely absurd. There isn't an HOA in my neighborhood, but I have a story that's relevant. For more than 35 years, my parents have lived in our house. They are only the second people to own it. The house was only about 5 years old when they moved in, and our street was the only one that had been built on at the time. I remember going for walks around the neighborhood as a child and seeing all the new houses being built. Only about 3 households have lived here longer than my parents. In fact, I've lived here longer than 95% of my neighbors because I've lived here my whole life. Many younger couples have moved in and tried to set up an HOA over the years. In this middle-class neighborhood, most of the homes are the same color and style, but each one has its own quirks that make it unique. But there isn't a single lawn in our subdivision that looks bad or isn't well taken care of. Many of the newer residents were either not interested in or in favor of an HOA, but most of the households that had lived here for years were against one. To start the HOA, everyone has to agree on it. This is why every time it was brought up, it failed because of people who didn't want it to happen, like my parents. Some power-hungry jerk didn't like that my parents and other people were holding out, so they told the city about our properties anonymously, saying that they were in violation of old rules that applied to everyone. The lilac and forsythia bushes on our corner had to be taken down because they obstructed the line of sight of other cars coming the other way. Which was completely false because the bushes were only about 3 feet high and my parents took good care of them. Also, if you were stopped at the line, you couldn't see them at all. But the city agreed with the complaint, even though the bushes have been on that corner for 40 years and there has never been a problem. I told next door about this problem and got a lot of support about the bushes. Then my dad cut down a dead tree on our lawn. 2 days later, someone complained about the pile of wood on the lawn. The complaint was made because the city was told the pile had been there for a while and there were no plans to take it down. My dad had already arranged for a friend to come get the wood within the next couple of days. Finally, someone told us that they could see our trash cans from the street on days when they weren't being used. Really? Every house does the same thing, which is to put them against the house and to the side. This was pointed out to the city and they dropped their complaint. However, my dad still built a fence to hide the bins. So yeah, that's how our non-HOA tried to act like an HOA. Of course, one good thing is that we've never had an HOA and I don't think we ever will. If you want to watch the part 1, click the link here. We're very, very glad to see you all in the comments. Many thanks for your support.